Hey everyone, welcome to KSSP Podcast. I am Spencer.
I'm Katie. Today we're talking about global warming. This is mostly just going to be looking at some different pieces of evidence explaining what global warming is. Let's get started here. So, first, we're going to go over climate.gov, the climate change global temperature. So, this is all the years that we've recorded global average surface temperature of the Earth since 1880 all the way through 2020 here. This is the difference from the 1901 to 2000 average in degrees Celsius. As we can see here, relatively lower than the average up until about 1940. Then it spikes up, dips down, spikes up, dips down, and then about 1980 we see this huge boom. So let's see. Given the tremendous size and heat capacity of the global oceans, it takes a massive amount of heat energy to raise Earth's average yearly surface temperature, even a small amount. The roughly 2 degree Fahrenheit, 1 degree Celsius increase in global average surface temperature that has occurred since the pre-industrial era, 1880 to 1900, might seem small, but it means a significant increase in accumulated heat. So the extra heat is driving regional and seasonal temperature extremes, reducing snow cover and sea ice, intensifying heavy rainfall and changing habitat ranges for plants and animals, expanding some and shrinking others. And then this map below shows that most land areas have warmed faster than most ocean areas, and the Arctic is warming faster than most other regions. So to calculate a global average of surface temperature, scientists begin with temperature measurements taken at locations around the globe. Because their goal is to track changes in temperature, measurements are converted from absolute temperature readings to temperature anomalies, the difference between the observed temperature and the long-term average temperature for each location and date. Multiple independent research groups across the world perform their own analysis on the surface temperature data, and they all show a similar upward trend. So 2020 among top 3 warmest years on record. So the global temperature in 2021. So according to the Global Climate Report from NOAA, every month 2021 was warmer than average despite the cooling influence from the La Nina climate pattern in the tropical Pacific. The coolest month was February, which was 1.15 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than average. The rest of the year, temperatures were more than 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than average. The year culminated as the 6th warmest year on record for the global temperature. The temperature that was 0.84 degrees Celsius, 1.51 degrees Fahrenheit above the 20th century average. The years 2013 to 2021 all rank among the 10 warmest years on record. The year 2021 was also the 45th consecutive year since 1977 with global temperatures at least nominally above the 20th century average. Of note, the year 2005, which was the first year to set a new global temperature record in the 21st century, currently ties with 2013 as the 10th warmest year on record, and 2010 ranks as the 9th warmest on record. Here's our projected annual global carbon emissions. Okay, I'm not sure exactly what all this means, to be honest. Let's see, hypothetical pathways of carbon emissions, percent of concentration pathways. So anyways, I'm going to move on from this because I have a lot more to go over here. How do we know climate change is real? This is from NASA. So while Earth climate change has changed throughout its history, the current warming is happening at a rate not seen in the past 10,000 years. According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, since systematic scientific assessments began in the 1970s, the influence of human activity on the warming of climate system has evolved from theory to established fact. Scientific information taken from natural sources such as ice cores, rocks, and tree rings, and from modern equipment like satellites and instruments all show the signs of a changing climate. From global temperature rising to melting ice sheets, the evidence of a warming planet abounds. Years before today, 0 is 1950. So this is 800,000 years before today. Look at how It's okay. For millennia, atmospheric carbon dioxide has never been above this line until 1950. Then it just skyrockets. So, just to give you an idea, do scientists agree on climate change? Yes, the vast majority of actively publishing climate scientists, 97%, agree that humans are causing global warming and climate change. So, that's just what the scientific community of professionals says. I definitely take their word on it over my own because they have a lot more expertise in the field than I do. So the current warming trend is different because it is clearly the result of human activity since the mid 1800s and is proceeding at a rate not seen over many recent millennia. Scientific evidence for warming of the climate system is unequivocal. Yep. So ice cores drawn from Greenland, Antarctica, and tropical mountain glaciers show that the Earth's climate responds to changes in greenhouse gas levels. Ancient evidence can also be found in tree rings, ocean sediments, coral reefs, and layers of sedimentary rocks. This ancient or paleoclimate evidence reveals that the current warming is occurring roughly 10 times faster than the average rate of warming after an ice age. Carbon dioxide from human activities is increasing about 250 times faster than it did from natural sources after the last ice age. So that's pretty terrifying, honestly. But okay.
Does it say, or do you have like I think it was on Wikipedia, like a chart that showed, or was it Wikipedia? I saw a chart. I think it might have been like a pie graph type situation, but
Okay.
that showed the. Let me just see if it was on Wikipedia super quick. It basically showed the effects of like what was causing climate change.
Yeah, I'll be getting to that next,
Like you
too.
have like kind of easy to see grass
Oh
percentage,
yeah,
like
causes and
that
effects of climate.
farming causes this percentage and gas. Because I think a lot
Oh,
of
I guess
people.
it doesn't say what percentage it
Oh,
causes,
okay.
but
Because I think a lot of people just assume, like, I don't think they get that it's not just cars. Like I think some people think that like it's just cars, or and maybe not, but I do feel like, or like that only going green isn't necessarily going to fix it either, because we also have to change like our
right. Well,
diets
we need
too.
to
But
hold large corporation. A lot of it is what large corporations do with all of their resources and funds to extract certain chemicals into our atmosphere.
yeah,
So it's about holding them accountable for that in some way, or incentivizing them not to do so, which would be more ideal.
yeah, or even yeah, we need to also figure like if they want us to be realistic and believe that corporations aren't going to put lives above profit, which is wrong, but if we're going to be realistic, that's how they are. Then we should also be researching how can we like reverse it in a way. I don't know
Oh, for
how,
sure.
obviously, but all those chemicals we have to be able to somehow do something. Like I don't know. It's just to
Yeah.
me, I don't believe in the idea that oh we can't do anything about it except forcing companies to be actual decent good companies. But
Yeah.
I
Although,
think that's a goal, but we also should look into other methods because we know
yeah.
we can't. And maybe we are. I guess I don't know. I'm not a scientist either, so I don't know if they are, but I would hope that they are, or
Well, I
some
would think
people,
there's people working on that. Yeah.
yeah, just to like recycle the chemical. I don't know, something.
Yeah. So yeah, that goes into what this is about here, the
Okay.
cause and effect of climate change. So we've got generating power. So generating electricity and heat by burning fossil fuels can cause a large chunk of global emissions. Most electricity is still generated by burning coal, oil, or gas, which produces carbon dioxide and nitrous oxide, powerful greenhouse gases that blanket the earth and trap the sun's heat. Globally, a bit more than a quarter of electricity comes from wind, solar, and other renewable sources, which, as opposed to fossil fuels, emit little to no greenhouse gases or pollutants in the air. So then, manufacturing goods. So, yeah, manufacturing and industry produce emissions mostly from burning fossil fuels to produce energy for making things like cement, iron, steel, electronic, plastics, other goods. Mining and other industrial processes also release gases, as does the construction industry. Machines used in the manufacturing process often run on coal, oil, or gas, and some materials, like plastics, are made from chemicals sourced from fossil fuels. The manufacturing industry is one of the largest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions worldwide. Cutting down forests. Cutting down forests to create farms or pastures or for other reasons causes emissions, since trees, when they are cut, release the carbon that they have been storing. Each year, approximately 12 million hectares of forest are destroyed. Since forests absorb carbon dioxide, destroying them also limits nature's ability to keep emissions out of the atmosphere. Deforestation, together with agriculture and other land use changes, is responsible for roughly a quarter of global greenhouse gas emissions. Using transportation. Most cars, trucks, ships, and planes run on fossil fuels. That makes transportation a major contender of greenhouse gases, especially carbon dioxide emissions. Road vehicles account for the largest part due to the combustion of petroleum-based products like gasoline and internal combustion engines, but emissions from ships and planes continue to grow. Transport accounts for nearly 1/4 of global energy-related carbon dioxide emissions, and trends point to a significant increase in energy use for transport over the coming years. All right, producing food causes emissions of carbon dioxide, methane, and other greenhouse gases in various ways, including through deforestation, clearing of land for agriculture and grazing, digestion by the cows and sheep, the production and use of fertilizers and manure for growing crops, and the use of energy to run farm equipment or fishing boats, usually with fossil fuels. All this makes food production a major contributor to climate change, and greenhouse gas emissions also come from the packaging and distributing food. Power buildings. Globally, residential and commercial buildings consume over half of all electricity. As they continue to draw on coal, oil, and natural gas for heating and cooling, they emit significant quantities of greenhouse gas emissions. Growing energy demand for heating and cooling with rising air conditioner ownership, as well as increased electricity consumption for lighting, appliances, and connected devices, has been contributed to a rise in energy-related carbon dioxide emissions from building in recent years. And consuming too much. Your home and use of power, how you move around, what you eat, and how much you throw away all contribute to greenhouse gas emissions. So does the consumption of goods such as clothing, electronics, and plastics. A large chunk of global greenhouse gas emissions are linked to private households. Our lifestyles have a profound impact on our planet. The wealthiest bear the greatest responsibility. The richest 1% of the global population combined account for more greenhouse gas emissions than the poorest 50%. All right, and those are the causes of climate change. Now, the effects of climate change. Hotter temperatures. I'm not going to go over these in too much detail, but more severe storms, increased drought, a warming, rising ocean, and loss of species, not enough food, more health risks. I know you're going to go over that. And then
Yeah.
poverty and displacement. Climate change, I want to go over this one really quick. So, climate change increases the factors that put and keep people in poverty. Floods may sweep away urban slums, destroying homes and livelihoods. Heat can make it difficult to work in outdoor jobs. Water scarcity may affect crops. Over the past decade, 2010 to 2019, weather-related events displaced an estimated 23.1 million people on average each year, leaving many more vulnerable to poverty. Most refugees come from countries that are most vulnerable and least ready to adapt to the impacts of climate change. So it's very important to note that. All right. We're going to go over this NOAA climate change impacts. Global temperatures rose about 1.98 degrees Fahrenheit from 1901 to 2020. But climate change refers to more than an increase in temperature. It also includes sea level rise, changes in weather patterns like drought and flooding, and much more. Things that we depend upon and value, water, energy, transportation, wildlife, agriculture, ecosystems, and human health, are experiencing the effects of climate change. It's a complex issue. Our changing climate. Here we go. All right, global temperatures rose roughly 2 degrees Fahrenheit from 1901 to 2020. Sea level rise has accelerated from 1.7 millimeters a year throughout most of the 20th century, and it looks like it's doubled to 3.2 millimeters a year since 1993. Glaciers are shrinking. Average thickness of a 30 well-studied glaciers has decreased more than 60 feet since 1980. Oh, wow. That's a lot. Okay. The area covered by sea ice in the Arctic at the end of the summer has shrunk by about 40% since 1979. Wow, 40%, that's crazy. The amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has risen by 25% since 1958 and by about 40% since the Industrial Revolution. Wow. Okay. Snow is melting earlier compared to long term averages. Yeah, so then water. I know you'll be going over the water stuff. So
Yeah.
I'll let you talk about that. And then food. Our food supply depends on climate and weather conditions. Let's see. Human farm workers can suffer from heat related health issues like exhaustion, heat stroke, and heart attacks. Rising temperatures and heat stress can also harm livestock. And then you were going to talk about the impacts on human health as well, so I'll let you cover that.
French fries.
Right, I'm looking at that too. Infrastructure. Yeah, okay. What I really wanted to talk about, though, this EPA report. Disproportionate impacts of climate change on socially vulnerable populations in the United States. So I just wanted to go over these numbers here really quick. I'm not going to go over this whole article, but just the numbers. So, Black and African American individuals are projected to face higher impacts of climate change for all six impacts analyzed in this report compared to all other demographic groups. For example, with 2 degrees Celsius, 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit of global warming, Black and African American individuals are 34% more likely to currently live in areas with highest projected increases in childhood asthma diagnosis. This rises to 41% under 4 degrees Celsius of global warming, or 7.2 degrees Fahrenheit. 40% more likely to currently live in areas with the highest projected increases in extreme temperature related deaths. This rises to 59% under 4 degrees Celsius of global warming. And then the next key finding is that Hispanics and Latinos have high participation in weather exposed industries such as construction and agriculture, which are especially vulnerable to the effects of extreme temperatures. With 2 degrees Celsius of global warming, Hispanic and Latino individuals are 43% more likely to currently live in areas with highest projected reductions in labor hours due to extreme temperatures. With regards to transportation, Hispanic and Latino individuals are about 50% more likely to currently live in areas with highest estimated increases in traffic delays due to increases in coastal flooding. So that was all the data I was going to go over today.
So, starting, you kind of covered some of like just the main things, like the effects of climate change, like expanding deserts, heat waves, wildfires become more common, the storms are more intense. You mentioned that. But I definitely wanted to talk. So we'll start with I want to kind of go over two things because I feel like maybe some people, when thinking of climate change, either they can be like, oh, well, I don't live on a coast, so I'm fine. Or, I don't know, maybe
Oh, even
some
if you don't
people,
live on the coast, though, you're still like
yeah,
going to be subject to awful natural disasters that are a result of global warming.
yeah. And maybe some people are like, oh, well, I live in the Midwest, so warmer temperatures are going to be nicer for me. Or, I don't know. People, a lot of times, I think, use interesting trains of thought to justify
Yeah,
not or why they don't think it's bad. But I mean, just the science shows that if it keeps, I don't think our species is gonna be able to
survive.
survive in that. But
Yeah.
so I wanted to today talk about disease and water scarcity. So actually, before I share my screen, I have, for disease, obviously diseases affect everyone regardless of where you live. No matter what, you can contract a disease because that's how diseases work. So you may be wondering, well, how does climate change affect health? How does climate change make me more at risk for disease? Well, I kind of looked up that because I was wondering that too, you know. And what I found is that mild winters, early springs, and warmer temperatures give mosquitoes and ticks more time to reproduce, spread disease, and expand their habitats. And as we know, that is going to affect malaria and Lyme disease. And I want to say that there's a, like, I feel
What's
like
Nile?
there have been more, or yeah, West Nile, sorry. Or do they do malaria too? Or,
And malaria.
okay. Um, and West Nile, yeah. But I feel like there's been more cases of Lyme disease spread like happening than we've seen in the past too, which would make sense because with these milder climates, they can be around longer and reproduce more. And that can affect anyone, no matter where you live.
Yeah,
And
and
I think there was a map that also showed that their habitats are expanding as well, because with the milder temperatures, they can live in more areas than they used to be able to for longer as well. So that's going to affect all of us. And then another thing was that this climate change is, and this can be part of just deforestation in general, but forcing some animal species into new habitats as their natural habitats disappear. And then you may be wondering, oh, well, why does that matter? Because then that puts us at more risk for rabies, being more like you have a higher chance to run into an animal with rabies compared to if they were in their natural habitat. But now they have to come, a lot of times, I think they end up being closer to cities or even in cities. And then also, there was one thing, I think voles, I'm not sure what voles are, but they can spread like Alaska pox, I guess. So I feel like that must be an Alaska thing, but it still it still matters to everyone. And then another thing that I saw before I have some articles, but another thing that I saw before I show those is fungi. Rising temps have allowed certain disease carrying fungi to spread, which I guess has increased the incidence of valley fever as well. So it's not even only animals either that are going to lead to more disease. But I did want to, I have an article here. I'm not, or uh, yeah, it's like article research, but, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I think this one is it. Did climate change influence the emergence, transmission, and expression of the COVID-19 pandemic? So I'll just kind of read this abstract here. The human race has survived many epidemics and pandemics that have emerged and reemerged throughout history. The novel coronavirus, severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19, is the latest pandemic, and this has caused major health and socioeconomic problems in almost all communities of the world. The origin of the virus is still in dispute, but most likely, the virus emerged from the bats and also may involve an intermediate host before affecting humans. Several other factors also may have affected the emergence and outcome of the infection, but in this review, we make a case for a possible role of climate change. The rise in industrialization-related human activities has created a marked imbalance in the homeostasis of environmental factors such as temperature and other weather, and these might even have imposed conditions for the emergence of future coronavirus cycles. An attempt is made in this review to explore the effect of ongoing climate changes and discuss if these changes had a role in facilitating the emergence, transmission, and even the expression of the COVID-19 pandemic. We surmise that pandemics will be more frequent in the future and more severely impactful unless climate changes are mitigated. And then with this, I saw there was this little picture here that just kind of shows, I think, well, I didn't want to, but it kind of shows like what can cause climate change and then potentially the reasoning why they think that it spread because like the bats had to, like their habitat was changed, and just in general how the climate change in their theory could have impacted the COVID-19 pandemic. And then I think there was one more here that just kind of, again, gave some more information about why they think that it might have, like, climate change could have increased or impacted COVID-19. So I just felt COVID-19, since it's obviously still around, was an important, like, maybe, I don't know, I thought maybe that could help us understand the importance and that it is affecting us. And then I also have, just from the CDC here, climate change and infectious disease. It kind of says the same thing, but I like to, if I can, back my facts up. But Lyme disease, West Nile virus, and valley fever, just some of the infectious diseases that are on the rise and spreading to new areas. These are also some of the other diseases that they believe could or have been increasing due to climate change. And then I think here, so the number of reported illnesses from mosquito, tick, and flea bites more than doubled. 9 new germs were discovered and introduced. The contact with animals, as I mentioned, just the rabies. And then, oh yeah, the vole populations. Fungi caused the valley fever. And then water, I think on here the reason is like algal, however you say that, blooms, and that, because then that has like cyanobacteria as well. And then I guess they also saw that traces of antibiotics are present and can sometimes remain in the environment. So that's a concern for antibiotic resistant infections too, which is already a big issue, but it could get worse with climate change. So I wanted to, like I said, talk about disease and why it's important and how it can affect everyone regardless of where you live. I mean, any of these factors can affect you regardless of where you live. But the next one that I kind of wanted to dig into is the water shortage. And not necessarily globally, but for us in America, I mean, this probably affects everyone too, but the Western water crisis is what I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit. So I have a couple of articles. I don't remember, I don't think I had them in any specific order. So we'll just start with this one. So this is just what you need to know about the Western water crisis. So some problems. We use a lot of water. Americans use more water per person than almost anywhere else in the world, more than 3 times as much as Chinese and 15 times more than the Danish. The highest domestic water use is in the driest western states. Arizona residents use 147 gallons per day compared to just 51 gallons in Wisconsin. Overconsumption is one big reason for the drought. Scientists project that the Southwest drought trends, which began in 2001, could last for decades more and be the most severe in 1,000 years. But it's not the only one, because the West vastly overestimates the amount of water availability to begin with. States in the Southwest get between a third to half of their water from groundwater. The rest comes from rivers and streams. But while ground and surface waters are often hydrologically interconnected, in many of those states, officials account for them as separate systems, meaning the best estimates of the region's total supply could be wrong. Until last year, California didn't even have a comprehensive law regulating how much water its residents took from aquifers underground, even though those waters now account for roughly half of the state's total use. As in, the West overallocates Colorado River supplies by 500 billion gallons every year. So the 7 Colorado River states, which is Arizona, California, Colorado, New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, and Wyoming, and Mexico divide up rights for 5.4 trillion gallons of river water each year, 1.4 trillion more than has actually flowed through the river each year on average since 2001, and 500 billion gallons a year more than the river produced on average long before the drought.
Wait, so that's including Mexico too, right?
Yep,
Okay.
Mexico as well. And demand is only expanding. Denver's metro population hit 2.7 million in 2013, more than 3 times what it was in 1960, and it's expected to grow by another 56% in the next 25 years. Several tunnels have already been drilled to divert Colorado River water beneath the Continental Divide to Denver, and Colorado lawmakers recently proposed constructing a new pipeline from the Missouri River. To make matters worse, the ways we withdraw water from the Colorado are inefficient. Utah's Lake Powell, the second largest water storage facility in the US, holds up to 7.9 trillion gallons of water, but loses up to 292 billion gallons to seepage and evaporation every year. That's 6% of the Colorado River's entire flow. Meanwhile, moving Colorado River water to central Arizona requires more power than anything else in Arizona, contributing to the very climate warming that is diminishing the river's supply. They cause the very pollution that contributes to climate change and worsens the drought. So the Navajo generating station emits more carbon pollution than all but 2 other power plants in the United States and was built largely to move Colorado River water to central Arizona. Technology has allowed us to pump even more water from the ground. The invention of powerful motorized pumps made it possible to suck more groundwater faster and from deeper than ever before. California's groundwater levels have dropped 50 to 100 feet below the lowest levels ever previously recorded. In Arizona, groundwater levels have dropped as much as 500 feet, and the ground above them is sinking as the aquifers are emptied. Urban development continues unabated. In 30 years, Las Vegas's water district hasn't rejected a single development proposal because of water supplies, allowing thousands of homes to be built as the population has nearly tripled. Vegas now supports its 103 billion economy with an average 138 billion gallons of imported water every year, almost entirely from Lake Mead. Farmers profit from crops that can't be sustained by the river's natural flow. Farming and agriculture account for more than 70% of all water use by the Colorado River Basin states. With its limited water, California farmers grow rice, cotton, alfalfa, and almonds, 4 of the most water-intensive crops in the world. In fact, the federal government actually encourages farmers to grow water hogging crops with the Colorado River water. Since 1995, Congress has authorized more than $1 billion in federal subsidies to grow cotton in Arizona and $3 billion to grow it in California. Cotton farmers say they might have switched, but the subsidies from the Farm Bill keep them in business. And states discourage conservation of the river with arcane use it or lose it clauses in their water laws. The prior appropriation doctrine, the foundation of water laws in the West, gave water to the first people to settle there, but state water laws based on this doctrine typically include an abandonment clause for their water rights, forcing farmers, whether they need their water or not, to use it or lose it. So, as we can see, the Western water crisis is a big deal for many reasons. And another thing, so I kind of wanted to look at, let me see. Yeah, so one big thing obviously is farming, because as we know, farming, you need water to grow crops. And I don't think it was this one, but then I wondered maybe like why, well, some people may be wondering, well, why does California matter? Like, who cares if California loses all their water and can't produce food for people anymore, or can't produce agriculture for people anymore, and whatever
Well,
else
doesn't
you may
like
think.
95% of our food pretty much come from California, if I remember that
I
right?
have that right here. So, California produces nearly half of US grown fruits, nuts, and vegetables,
Half, okay.
and it accounts for 46% of the US fruit and nut production and 62% of the national value of fruit and nut crops. With how much they produce, I mean, sure, maybe we could try to relocate some of them, but it would still be a massive, or it is going to be a massive loss to California's economy. And sure, some people may be like, oh, well, they deserve it, blah, 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 whatever you want to say about. I mean, I don't think, like, I think that's a horrible take to have because nobody, no human deserves what's going to happen when that happens. But
Yeah. Like you don't deserve your whole livelihood to just be taken away
no,
from that.
that's just,
Just because you live in a certain area.
no, it's rude. And we're all Americans. We should all want each other
Right.
to
We should want
not
to build each other
struggle.
up.
Yes, if we're all true American, and we are, anyone who's in America is a true American.
Yes.
There's an, like, yeah, I'm not going to talk much about that. But, anyways, even if you don't care if California loses some of their money, that's going to affect the rest of the United States because I'm pretty sure California is the highest GDP in our country, and it's one of the
Yeah.
highest GDPs in the world. So their economy is extremely important to the American economy. Without their economy, I'd have to look into it, but I don't think America would be near the top without California's economy.
Oh, definitely not.
So it is extremely important that we are all aware of the Western water crisis and how it affects us. And it doesn't matter if you don't like California as a state. No one cares. It doesn't matter. It's about everyone's future right now.
Yes. It's about coming
It's not
together.
a political thing either.
Right.
Climate change
It's
is
just,
not political.
it's not, it's happening no matter if you voted for Trump or Biden or whoever you
Yes.
voted for. Climate change is affecting all of us. And you can try to deny it, but then you're just dismissing the facts at that point.
Yeah. And then I just had one more thing here about maybe because obviously solutions are because
Yes,
I don't
solutions
want to
are.
fear monger either because I don't want to be like it's all doom and gloom because it's not. But we need to be aware of these issues so we can critically think how to fix them. Everybody, anybody should be. You don't. I'm not saying people should put ever like the rest of their life aside and come up with a solution. But while you're working, maybe if it's just something that crosses your mind, like maybe we could try this. Like I think anybody really can come up with a solution. It doesn't have to be some top level scientist. I think anybody could, as long as you're aware of it, at least if you have an idea, it's always good to put that idea out there and see maybe if it is something that we could do. So anybody can
Right.
really, I think it's good for everyone to be
Because,
aware of our
yeah,
issues and try to maybe think of solutions.
yeah, if you do have those ideas, I think it's important to bring it to the right people too. Like you want
Yeah,
to bring it to people who are experts in the field because they're going to have a much more extent to the knowledge and a better idea of how different ideas being implemented would, like, what kind of effects they would have. I mean, we can't predict with 100% certainty what's going to happen, but
no.
like you can still make very educated guesses.
Yeah. And they would know, like, even if it was viable, if it was a viable solution too, like, they would obviously,
Yeah.
but it's not, but I do encourage people to still think about these
Oh,
issues.
yeah.
So, but yeah,
Absolutely.
but definitely finding someone, I don't know who you would go to, but someone probably, I don't know, I
Like a
guess.
climate scientist or somebody.
Yeah. I don't know where they are though.
I mean, you
Maybe
find
they're
one
all over,
Facebook
but
there.
yeah, I guess. Um, so these are just some experts top 19, and now this is like global freshwater crisis, so this isn't only for the Western water crisis, but we can use these solutions anywhere. So I was just gonna mention them here. So consumption and lifestyle changes, new water conservation technologies, recycling wastewater, improve irrigation and agricultural practices, appropriately priced water, develop energy efficient desalination plants. Oh, hey, we mentioned that. So we were talking about that one night.
Oh
getting the
yes,
salt out of the water.
yeah.
It can happen. We weren't
Okay.
crazy. I don't know how to do it,
I
but
mean, they make water bottles that can do it. I think at this point,
do they? Yeah, because
or
we were
maybe
like,
I don't
because
know if it's for salt water, but I know they have ones where you put like literal mud water and it'll like filter it into like clean water you can drink.
interesting. But California needs to do that on a mass scale. I mean, any probably coastal city or state should consider, or even just country in general. I'm not. I just talk about United States because we live there, but it can be used in any coastal country, city, state, whatever. But especially with the Western water crisis, I would think the Western states really need to consider developing these then.
Yeah,
Improving water catchment and harvesting, look to community-based governance and partnerships, develop and enact better policies and regulations, holistically manage ecosystems, improve distribution infrastructure, shrink corporate water footprints, build international frameworks and institutional cooperation, address pollution, public common resources slash equitable access, R&D slash innovation, water projects in developing countries slash transfer of technology, climate change mitigation, and then I guess population growth control. Although I don't think that would be popular
yeah.
anyway.
I don't
But
think we're gonna be like telling people who and who
yeah,
can't have kids. Like, I don't think we can really do that
no,
ethically.
I don't. I think you can educate and just
Yeah,
maybe like in that sense, I would just be like, I would just be aware of what your kids are going to experience in the future, and if you
yeah,
want to bring kids into that, but definitely, I don't think we should ever control like
right. We still need to
force
continue the
people to
human
have kids
species.
or force people not to have kids. I think that's wrong on
Right.
either end of the spectrum. I guess I don't know,
Yeah,
but
I'd agree.
yeah. So those are the things I wanted to kind of talk about because climate change affects us all. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter what your political affiliation is. It affects us all. Whether you want to admit it, it doesn't matter. It affects us all. It's real.
Yeah.
It's here. It's we can do things though to help mitigate it. And that's the whole point of having discussions about climate change is how can we help improve it or
Right.
even just lessen it a little bit because I think that's what the whole climate accord was about was to lower. I mean, it's not like they're gonna go
We're not
around and take your
eliminating it.
electricity away, but we do want to limit consumption, and that's on an individual basis. But on like global levels, they have that I think emission standard or whatever it is with the climate accord. But I think I was reading even with the agreements and like no, I don't think we're meeting that. I don't think any country or I'd have to look into it, but the most recent thing I saw about it was that even if they make the proposed changes, it's not going to lower it by what we need it to lower by.
Right. It'll
So,
lower it, but not
yeah,
to the
not what we
degree that
need
we
it.
need it lowered
Yeah.
to
If we don't want to see all these, like, if we don't want these
these side
negative
effects.
effects to keep happening.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we can't, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to say we can't reverse things, but I don't even know what reversing
I mean, we'd
it
have to
would.
extract the greenhouse gases from our atmosphere somehow.
Yeah, but I mean that would just I guess stop the increase like the droughts and everything, but it wouldn't
Mhm.
like get anything back that we've experienced or
Right.
lost.
And
Like
like
we've
it's not going
already
to lower the sea levels or anything like that.
no, yeah, exactly. So
And it's
there's
not going to refreeze the ice caps.
yeah.
Or
Well, I mean, unless we did it so much that the whole ocean froze and we went to an ice age,
I
but
mean, yeah, I guess
I
that's
mean
possible,
that's
but I don't
I
think we're
don't
heading
think
in that direction
no,
anytime soon.
I don't think anyone wants that either. I didn't,
Right.
yeah, but global warming, climate change, whatever you want to call it. It's important. I don't know. I just don't know if it's talked about or I know it was controversial at one point, which is just so odd. It's the things that are
I mean, it's still
controversial.
controversial.
How? I just don't get it. Like
I mean, that's why we show the facts. That's why we give everyone the data, so they at
I
least have the data.
know. It's
And I
just
mean, you can't force people to accept the data, though.
no, I know. And I never would want to, but it's just
It's frustrating, though.
yeah, and it's just like I don't even know like I don't even know if I'm frustrated. I'm just like I can't wrap my mind around not accepting data.
Right.
Like
I
I
think,
understand not liking data for sure, but not like claiming that it's false is
well, because
hard for
there's
me
some
to
data that's
accept.
false, but like
I mean,
that's
yes,
typically
okay.
like easy to distinguish if you actually look into the professional communities within that research.
Yes. Cuz I think that like obviously with the autism vaccines that was false information, but it was
Right.
spread by a doctor, I believe.
Who is, yeah, he had all of his medical licenses like taken away and
Yes.
all of his credentials removed, basically.
Yeah. So I guess I do get it's okay to be skeptical. I understand skeptical, I guess.
But
Like
when
I
97% of climate scientists agree that humans have an impact on global warming,
well, and if you just think about the facts too, like
yeah,
if you sit there and think about the science, it like logically makes sense. Whether or not scientists agree with it, whether or not you agree with it, it just logically makes sense. I
yeah,
mean, unless I'm thinking of it wrong, and I could be, but like I think if you just logically think of things, then like whether or not you believe the fact, like it's I don't know, it's just odd. It's interesting for me to try to think
I
different.
mean,
I don't
there's
know.
all, people believe all kinds of things. Like, there's people
Yeah.
that say global warming doesn't exist because the earth is flat. What are you going to do about that?
Well, even if the Earth was flat and the firmament was here, wouldn't the methane still? Well, then how would the heat escape at all at that point? Wouldn't we be
Yeah,
like too hot? You know? I mean,
yeah,
but even you can still logically think that even if you believe in that stuff, I guess like it's still gonna get warmer if we, because even if you increase after the industrial era how much gas and pollution we're putting into the world, it's gonna make it warmer just in
right.
general.
It's just in
Again,
our atmosphere.
yeah. So even if you believe the Earth is flat, we still have pollution. Or like,
Right.
do
I
they
mean,
not
it's true.
believe in a layer protecting the Earth at that point? I guess I don't know. That's
Yeah. And I mean, it's not always logical either. I think that's
I
part of the
know.
point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, yeah, it's not logical, obviously, but you can like
I
you can
mean, we
still
can try
make
and rationalize it all we want,
yeah
but at the end of the day, it's not going to be logical.
can still make climate change logical from their worldview, kind
Yeah.
of. But it's just interesting what people.
Well, did you want to go over anything else?
No,
I mean, I think we've got a lot.
I think that was mostly it. Just global warming is real and
Yes.
it affects all of us globally. So
Yeah.
just I guess be aware of it. That's what we wanted to get across today is just facts and be aware.
Yeah.
But you can leave a comment below letting us know what you want us to talk about in future episodes.
Yeah, and you can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And we do some Twitch live streams occasionally as well.
So don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so that you are notified when we do, because we'd love to see you there and have a conversation. But otherwise, we will see you guys next time.